Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we are going to look at how narcissists, sociopaths, and psychopaths so easily generate flying monkeys or cult members. And why is this so common in the literature? A lot of this doesn't make sense. How does this cult or herd consist of innocent, righteous people who don't know what's up? Well, to answer that question, we must first answer this other question. Why do borderlines tend to get used by narcissists, sociopaths, or psychopaths? It's important to differentiate between borderlines and narcissists, sociopaths, and psychopaths because they are quite different. Borderlines have pure intentions and beautiful hearts. There are 3 quick points about that. They are honest about their feelings. They do not operate from a place of chronic dishonesty and extreme manipulativeness. They genuinely try to make up for their mistakes, which is quite different than narcissists, sociopaths, and psychopaths, who are typically remorseless and users of justification. They care about connection, not control, which is quite different from narcissists, sociopaths, and psychopaths, who are control-focused. Well, if all of that is true, then what is the core issue for borderlines? Borderlines are constantly tortured by their own endlessly superheating emotional system. That's the core issue. Often the origins of a borderline's pain comes from experiencing brutal trauma inflicted upon them at an early age, usually by a narcissist, sociopath, or psychopath. Kids are quite defenseless. They are not going to be able to reach out to Stoicism and draw strength from it. When you think about how harsh specific aspects of their childhood were, and the psychic pain they have to endure from a minute-to-minute basis, the behavior of borderlines becomes not only understandable, but something we must deeply empathize with. What behavior, you ask? Splitting. From one minute to the next, the same person who was saying, "I really trust you," can say, "I want nothing to do with you."
Splitting is a phenomenon in which a person, often with borderline personality disorders where we see it, will either see things as all good or all bad. There's no gray. This most often happens with people. So where this gets confusing is they may literally view someone as, "This is the best doctor I've ever had. He is a lifesaver. There is no greater doctor." But the first time that doctor disappoints them, "You are the worst doctor ever. I'm going to post a bad Yelp review about you. You are a monster." So you went from pedestal to trash heap in a day. Versus, "You're a great doctor, however." There's no gray. So that tendency to split, it can be about people, it can be about situations, in some ways it can even be about themselves. This is the tendency in borderline personality disorder to not be able to view things holistically.
The tendency not to view things holistically is also reflected in the struggles borderlines have with black and white thinking. Someone is viewed as either all good or all bad. The rule of thumb for behavior analysts is that if a person engages in a maladaptive behavior, at some point, those behaviors served a functional purpose. So think about how much chaos or a lack of safety a child must experience before splitting becomes a behavior pattern or black and white thinking becomes a default. That said, black and white thinking is especially menacing when it is promoted within a cult or herd of triangulated people. The rank psychopathic cult leader of a smear campaign is all good, and the target is all bad. Because of their constantly superheating emotional systems, borderlines are highly reactive and emotional, vulnerabilities that can be weaponized by cynical manipulators. Manipulators exploit the emotions of others to get what they want. They will throw you into a state of derp to gain compliance. Well, what is a state of derp? It is a triggered state of mind in which your emotions are so intense that your cognition and rationality took a major hit. Okay, it's time to hammer these points home. Manipulative people do not win with logic. They win by hijacking your emotions, specifically the emotions of rage, empathy, and a sense of urgency. Once your emotions spike high enough, your critical thinking shuts down. Cults, toxic relationships, and manipulative leaders all understand one thing: when they control your emotions, they can circumvent your conscience and your cognition. At that point, you are theirs to control. Also, at that point, you will be used to bring others into their triangulated mess. One former cult member said, "I thought I was following God. Looking back, I guess I was just following emotional intensity." Joseph Goebbels, chief Nazi propagandist, followed the idea that his diabolically named Ministry of Truth must put out propaganda that appealed to the feelings of the public rather than their reasoning ability. That's why the biggest supporters of narcissists, sociopaths, and psychopaths tend to be balls deep in emotionalism. That's why Dr. Sam Vaknin can say something like this without alarm bells going off for people.
Smear campaign is a form of gang stalking, in the sense that a gang of people usually collude and collaborate in order to inflict harm and distress on another person.
So a smear campaign is a form of gang stalking in the sense that a gang of people usually collude and collaborate in order to inflict harm and distress on another person. And Christians look at that and go, well, what's wrong with that? Oh, a derp, a derp, a derp, a derp, a derp. I guess that's the difference between Christians and actual disciples of Christ. I guess they're on that CCC, Stevie Wonder Emotional Support System. Stevie says, I'm seeing, I'm telling you, I'm seeing. Eye surgery? Ha, no thanks. Now, can someone please hand me the car keys? Easy there, Stevie. You can't even see the Mack truck that's parked in front of you. How are you going to get the car keys? All I need is a little emotional validation. In a previous video, we discussed the fact that abusers want narcissistic supply. Nothing makes them feel more important than your emotional reactivity. What's narcissistic supply? Your emotional reactivity. We've already established that borderlines are constantly tortured by their own endlessly superheating emotional system. Borderline personality disorder is often described as the most painful illness, sometimes compared to experiencing third-degree burns on 90% of the body, an apt metaphor for their psychic pain. This makes them highly reactive, which means two things. First, control can be established easily. Narcissists, sociopaths, and psychopaths are button pushers, and when they experience something that they don't like, they want to be able to push a button to make somebody else feel pain. Second, that high amount of reactivity means they will automatically feed the inflated egos of narcissists, sociopaths, and psychopaths. When I was younger, I met a man, let's call him John, who was 40 years older than me. John was a man of action, a true Christian warrior. One morning, I woke up to this phone call from a mutual acquaintance. Good morning, Raj. I was at John's and his OCD is flaring. I didn't know John has OCD, I said. Well, you've been warned. Steer clear of John. Being a big psychology nerd who has ADHD, nothing could have piqued my interest more. I found myself making up an excuse to visit John, to give him a frappuccino. Whatever he was going through, he could surely use a frappuccino. Showed up at his door, and I couldn't even recognize him. It was John as I'd never seen him. All the friendliness and joy was sucked right out of his face. He was in a high state of agitation. Come into my house and help me, he screamed. I'm going to spend all day doing this. Doing what? Can't you see? I'm alphabetizing all of my furniture. Alphabetizing? I don't follow. Come in already. I said, John, I got you this frappuccino. I have some things I need to be doing. I should go. And John became uncharacteristically angry about it. He got right up in my grill. Come in now. I stepped back and took my first step back to my car while I said, John, I'm sorry, but I don't do this. I set the frappuccino down on the table in his front porch. Do what? He asked. I don't add to chaos. Please try the frappuccino. Each time you take a sip, please remember that that's my affection for you. I like you, John. I enjoy you, but I don't do this. And with that, I raced back to my car and drove away as fast as I could. I was in my mid-30s at the time, and it was the first time I'd told a grown man twice my age the word no. That's a boundary I've learned to hold on to. And to the borderlines in my life who are either family or friends, that's the boundary I've held for the last 3 years minimum. And you know it's true. When there's a reason to celebrate, whether it's your birthday or Christmas, you know I've been down. And will continue to be. If you want to have a positive interaction, you know I'd enjoy that. If it's chaos, which if you're a family member, you never even brought up anything like that. If it's chaos, I'm not adding to that. I hope you know there's much affection even when I say no. Scammers say, psst. It turns out that the best form of exercise is jumping to the conclusions we want you to jump to. What's wrong with emotionalism? You can't call them scammers, though. Turns out they're highly sensitive to being called that. A more technically accurate term might be derpers, since they throw people into a state of derp to get what they want and gain your compliance. That's how the righteous and the innocent end up supporting them. Flying monkeys explained. When you're working with narcissists, sociopaths, and psychopaths, guess what? Your emotional vulnerabilities will be weaponized against you. A little quality I call interpersonal exploitativeness. You would think that these dimwits would give up on strategies that have failed them for years, but no, they want to keep it going. Towel me off, they say. Tell me how brilliant I am for having pathological behavior problems. Now remember, Dr. Vaknin said this about smear campaigns.
It is a narrative. Smear campaign is a narrative. Every smear campaign has a story that motivates it, the engine, the narrative engine, and it includes role reversal. Whereas the vast majority of the instigators of smear campaigns are actually perpetrators.
We are out of time. 2 Timothy 1 verse 7 says, "For God did not give us a spirit of timidity or rage or whatever else the overpowering emotion is, but a spirit of power and love, and more to the point, self-control." Thank you so much for joining me on this video. Much love and God bless.